Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Princess Strongstyle 9v2, and I'm back with another video. Today, as you can tell, this is my Wrestling in the 2010s Q&A. Originally, I'd recorded this last weekend. However, I thought it came out terribly, so I decided to re-record this. And how it's gonna go is, you guys, I have a video sent out for you to send me questions. You guys send me the questions. I give you the answers, unless I change the question around by accident. But whatever, that's not the whole introduction, but whatever. Let's get into it. Now, first set of questions come from Maritza Medina. And by the way, for those who are wondering, this is just um, the questions that I have here in the comment section of the video is organized by however YouTube does it for me. So Maritza actually sent me two sets of 5 questions, although that is considered cheating. He did repeat a couple of them, so I will give him a break. So first question, what is your favorite match of 2010? There really isn't a contest. Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels from WrestleMania 26. Career versus streak. Just wow. This was an incredible match. Nothing needs to be said. Although I still prefer the WrestleMania 25 match, I think if you look at it from a certain standpoint, it was a better match. And I've seen people rate this as a better match than the 25 match, although I am more of a fan of the 20 than the 26 match. But this is not even a contest. This is match of the year. No ROH match, no PWG match, nothing was better than this one. Just perfect, perfect match. Better show. Wrestle Kingdom 9 10. I haven't, sadly, I don't think I ever finished Wrestle Kingdom 9 because I was really, really busy, but I have seen a majority of the show. I think I haven't seen one or two matches, but as a whole, I would say Wrestle Kingdom 9 was a better show because it flowed a lot better, it had better booking, the matches were fantastic. You had two 5-star matches, just the same as Wrestle Kingdom 10. However, I feel like from top to bottom, Wrestle Kingdom 9 was a better show as a whole. You had Nakamura versus Ibushi for the IC title, Tanahashi Okada for the IWGP Heavyweight title, Ishii Makabe for the Never title, AJ Styles Tetsuya Naito one-on-one, which were all awesome matches. The IWGP Heavyweight Tag Team title was really good. The junior championship match was really good. The opener was really, really good. The UWFI rules match between Minoru Suzuki and Kazushi Sakuraba was really damn good, and the two multi-man tag matches were entertaining for what they were. So, yeah, I would give the nod to Wrestle Kingdom 9, a much better show than Wrestle Kingdom 10, because with Wrestle Kingdom 10 was more memorable for the last 3 matches. Ishii Shibata for the Never title, AJ Styles, Shinsuke Nakamura for the IWGP Intercontinental title, and Tanahashi Okada for the IWGP Heavyweight title, which for me is the match of the year over Kenny Omega and Tetsuya Naito from the G1. So I would say, yeah, that is a better show in my opinion. Best wrestler from the 2010s. Um, Best wrestler of the 2010s. I'm gonna give it to CM Punk surprisingly because with Cena, I've had problems with him when it comes to his character and his storylines. Um, Punk may have had that as well, but I feel like he was a little more consistent when it came to his promos and his feuds. You were really interested in his feuds. Yeah, he may have had a couple of crappy ones here and there. Like most notable, if you want to call it that, was the feud with Big Show in 2010. But he made it severely entertaining. You know, I'm talking about Punk. Plus, he really added something refreshing to the business at the time, where it was a lot where he brought back a little more of that shoot style in in WWE when it comes to the promos and the realism behind it, and it kind of inspired some people when it came to promos, thanks to that promo he did in Las Vegas on Raw in June of 2011. And 2011, he really set the world on fire. There may have been a couple of missteps here and there. But by the end of the year, he was considered the wrestler of the year in many people's eyes, and it wasn't even a contest. 2012, he was wrestler of the year. 2013, he probably would have won the year again, but due to the fact that he was inactive for 2 months and he had a very lackluster feud involving Heyman's group in late 2013, he didn't get there. 2014, he obviously walked out, but I feel like he kind of contributed more to the business than what guys like Daniel Bryan did. But yeah, I would say wrestler of the decade. I'm gonna give it to CM Punk. If I have to name two honorable mentions, I'm going to give those to Daniel Bryan and maybe John Cena. It's debatable, but I would give the number three to actually to AJ Styles. And there's actually another question in reference to AJ Styles that I will talk about in a little bit. Best title reign of the 2010s. That's not even a contest. Best title reign of the 2010s. It's got to go to CM Punk's 434-day WWE Championship reign from Survivor Series 2011 to Royal Rumble 2013. Although people had a lot of criticism thrown at the way that the title reign ended and the fact that it was just a way to get the title onto Cena at WrestleMania in order to draw another buy rate with Rock versus Cena 2 twice in a lifetime. It was still an awesome reign, and it really gave WWE something interesting to work with. Although there were a couple of elements that I was really not happy with, such as the AJ Lee thing, mainly because she was so overexposed. Jesus, I mean, the whole crazy thing. I feel like if she was brought in small doses here and there, she would have worked fine. But she just kept getting so overexposed, and that's what kind of like hindered some people into believing that AJ could have actually worked in WWE. And it wasn't until her Divas Championship reign in 2013 that it really breathed a little bit of some life into her character and into her career as a whole. But the championship reign of CM Punk was awesome. Another one I have to mention would probably have to be AJ Lee's championship reign from 2013 into the night after WrestleMania 30, although it really wasn't the best way to end it. But it was meaningful when it came to revitalizing and reviving the women's division and what the perception of women's wrestling really was about in mainstream North American wrestling. So yeah, I would have to give those two championship reigns the nod, which ironic how both are gone and they're actually married, but whatever. It's still interesting to talk about years later. Let's see. Best company of the 2010s. Simply New Japan, because they pretty much got all the things right in more ways than one. When it came to Nakamura and AJ Styles leaving, they were able to replace them with Tetsuya Naito and Kenny Omega, who stepped up. And the moment I noticed that either one or both guys were going to definitely get pushed towards a big level, it started with Naito at Dominion, and I thought, this is an interesting character now that he's like the leader of the Ingobernables de Japón, um, with Evil and Sonata, I believe. Yeah, with Evil and Sonata, it adds a lot of something really interesting for the future. And it really didn't explode until when he won the New Japan Cup earlier in the year. But with Kenny Omega, I thought instantly, right then and there, with that match with Kushida at Wrestle Kingdom 10, he just looked so impressive, and I thought, bam, right there, you're gonna have yourself a future main eventer in Kenny Omega with that performance. And I said in my Wrestle Kingdom 10 review, he definitely gave his breakout performance in my opinion. And what happened? A month later, he won the IWGP Intercontinental title, defeating Hiroshi Tanahashi in the main event. Went on to become never openweight six-man tag champion with the Young Bucks. He was already IWGP Junior Heavyweight Champion when he entered the year, and now he won the G1 Climax, becoming the first Gaijin ever to win the G1 Climax. So that's just an amazing accomplishment. I will say Kenny Omega for me probably is the second best wrestler of the year, maybe third, somewhere in there. I would say up there with AJ Styles and The Miz. Seth Rollins would have been up there, but I would say those are the top three wrestlers in the world when it comes to accomplishment, promos, storylines, and just overall credibility in their role in their respective companies. So yeah, um, best company of the 2010s is New Japan. But when it came to not only that, um, not only with Omega and Naito, you had different people, switched in and out of the main event positions in New Japan. It wasn't just Tanahashi and Okada every single month. No, you switched in and out. You had Naito. You had Ishii a few months ago, main event with Naito. You had let's see, you had Carl Anderson at one point challenge for the title at a couple of points. You had Kenny Omega and so on and so forth. So yeah, you just had a lot of interesting things New Japan had. Plus their shows were great. So I would say New Japan is my promotion of the 2010s so far. If I have to name two honorable mentions, I would say if it counts, I would have probably said NXT, but I can't in a way because it's part of the WWE umbrella. So I'm gonna give number two probably Lucha Underground, and number three maybe PWG. Yeah, I'll give PWG probably the number three spot, mainly because of how much popularity the company really gained around 2011, and yeah, especially 2011. Holy crap, that promotion got a hell of a lot of praise. So yeah, those are those questions. Let me look at your other set of questions. Um, uh, d- d- okay, buy or sell Okada Tanahashi or CM Punk John Cena. Better overall rivalry. Um, I would say I would buy CM Punk John Cena because, really, really just like their matches, they're obviously awesome. They're big matches. The two on pay-per-view and then the one from Raw. They've had some awesome matches. They have great chemistry. They're basically the Rock and Cena the Rock Austin of the 2010s. And although we can never really truly get that really last big time pay-per-view match, although I'm not expecting it to top their Money in the Bank match, I would have loved to see them go at it one more time. Maybe WrestleMania 29 would have been perfect. Many people have debated that, and I would say instead of doing Rock Cena 2, I would have done Cena Punk one more time. Have that match they had in Dallas on Raw in 2013, and they would have stole the show at WrestleMania. It would have been a hell of a lot better since that Raw match was better than anything in WrestleMania, although Punk Taker was definitely close. But yeah, and better overall rivalry, I will give it, maybe Punk Cena, although I have more of a preference to Tanahashi Okada, not just from the great matches, but because it accomplished a lot more. Because it accomplished um, putting Okada in that main event spot, replacing Tanahashi. Because if you've seen recently, he had the recent back problems. He's had injury problems over the last few years, so it definitely that rivalry definitely helped Okada be put into that position as possibly the next ace of New Japan. So it definitely accomplished that. And your last question from your other set was best year of the decade. I'm actually going to give it to 2016 so far because if you look at it, all these different promotions have been on fire with, quality shows, quality matches, quality feuds. You may have a dud here and there, but what I love about this year is the fact that you have a variety of promotions. Lucha Underground is obviously kicking ass. NXT is just so refreshing as it brings back a lot of those old school vibes of NWA. If you want to compare it to that, you have PWG, who's just bringing on some really good quality shows, some quality matches, just quality entertainment, if you want to call it that. Although the 13th anniversary show was a disappointment for me, I still had some fun with that show. Um, Ring of Honor, trying to reach internationally with several other promotions, especially with the partnership with New Japan. New Japan's just been great this year so far. So many match of the year contenders. Um, you've had Progress Pro Wrestling. I haven't seen a show from that promotion. Things about the promotion this year, especially with the recent Chapter 36. Chapter 36 show. We need a bigger room again, which featured Zack Sabre Jr. and Tommaso Ciampa, 2 out of 3 falls. It featured the three-way main event for the Progress Championship between Marty Scurll, Mark Haskins, and Tommy End, I believe. Yeah. So Progress has been doing really well. Revolution Pro has done great with several shows like High Stakes earlier in the year. Got a lot of praise, especially for Ospreay Scurll for the number one contendership. Recently with some praise towards the Vader Ospreay match just because of how entertaining it was, although I haven't seen it yet. So a lot of these different promotions, and hell, I even forgot Evolve. They've been putting on some really good shows. I do have some complaints with that promotion, but they definitely have been delivering a lot of really good quality shows and matches, and especially they delivered one of the best matches of the year with Will Ospreay and Zack Sabre Jr. from Evolve 58, which was absolutely tremendous. So yeah, a lot of these promotions have been kicking ass this year in 2016. So yeah, I would say 2016 is the best year of the decade so far. If I have to name an honorable mention, I would give 2011 probably that nod, although there were some promotions that were underwhelming that year. But yeah, 2016 just been delivering some really good stuff. And thank you, Maritza, for those questions. Next set of questions come from Mr. Beetle. First question: most underrated WWE match of the tens. This is a pretty easy answer actually, but it kind of took a while for me to try to come up with what match I wanted to narrow it down to. But I'm gonna give it to Chris Jericho versus Evan Bourne from Fatal 4-Way. This was a pay-per-view that they did before Money in the Bank, the very first one in 2010, and it was after, I believe, Over the Limit when Batista left. So they did this match based off of a few segments they did between Jericho and Bourne on television. For those who don't know, Evan Bourne is also known as Matt Sydal from multiple different promotions, most notably Ring of Honor and New Japan. So Sydal came into WWE in 2007, I believe, like late 2007, and he came up to the main roster in 2008. He really wasn't making that big of a splash, but he kind of got noticed because of how innovative and how unique his high flying style of wrestling was. And Jericho was already known as one of the best in the world at the time, although he did have a bit of a down year compared to his 2009 and 2008 years. He was still having a really, really good run in WWE, although he did drop the world title in a very poor fashion to Jack Swagger. But right here, he faced Evan Bourne, and I gotta say, this was a great match. This was the match most from that Fatal 4-Way pay-per-view, not the whole WWE Championship Fatal 4-Way, not Rey Mysterio winning the world title. It was this match right here, and it's extremely forgotten. And one of the better Jericho matches I've seen over the past few years. Just a great little match that I feel like people should check out. Most underrated NXT match. This one I love because their NXT's just given us so many great matches, so many classic matches. Matches like Sami Zayn, Adrian Neville from R Evolution, Sami Zayn Cesaro from Arrival, Sami Zayn Nakamura from Takeover Dallas, Gargano and Ciampa versus Revival from Takeover Brooklyn 2, Bayley Sasha Banks 2 matches from 2015. But the match I found a few weeks ago that I actually watched and I was considering putting on the Sami Zayn top 15 list. However, I decided to go with other matches. This one gets forgotten about. And I'm going to name a couple of other Sami Zayn matches possibly, but the most underrated NXT match for me came from NXT television, September the 4th, correct me if I'm wrong, 2013. Sami Zayn versus Jack Swagger. This is a hell of a hidden gem, guys. I mean, the wrestling was really good. Jack Swagger was really was doing very well in that match. Sammy really gave Swagger credibility as a really good heel. The crowd was awesome that night in Full Sail. My God, when you talk about one of the most forgotten, slept upon crowds in wrestling for a match, this is one of those crowds. It was a really damn good little match. It's actually on Daily Motion. If you haven't seen this match, check it out. Best pay-per-view theme. Honestly, I can't really think of one because all either they suck or the pay-per-view themes that I've listened to I've just like slept out of my mind. I cannot think of one. Hate to do that. In most underrated feud. This is one that I thought was actually pretty good, and I haven't seen any of the material in a few years, but surprisingly, Bully Ray versus Joseph Park from TNA in 2012. Those two had great chemistry on the mic. The ring work, yeah, they only had two big matches. The Anything Goes match at Slammiversary 2012, and then they had another match. I believe it was an Anything Goes match as well on Impact. But the promos I thought between the two were really good, and it was really entertaining just seeing Joseph trying to go for his brother. Um, I'm trying to look for my brother Chris Abyss. It was hilarious. I mean, that was what the Kane character, the corporate Kane, where he was like changing in and out from like corporate Kane to Demon Kane last year. It was entertaining as hell. And when we saw Abyss at Slammiversary, I thought that was awesome. The build up to that match was great. It really wasn't that great, but it was entertaining as hell. And seeing Abyss in that match was entertaining. I would say that is the most underrated feud of the decade from what I've seen. So thank you, Mr. Beetle 890, for those questions, and good luck on your other channel. Next set of questions come from Samoan Fan 101. You sent these ones recently, and you actually gave me a bonus question in case if I wasn't able to answer one of them, but let's go through the other questions though. Number one, had the best overall career so far this decade and why? It's difficult to choose between these guys, but the options he gave me were AJ Styles or Daniel Bryan. Every one of them, those three guys had great accomplishments. Championship wins, incredible matches, great most interesting feuds. I'm going to actually give it to AJ Styles, when it comes to the career, because with Punk, he had a career, yes. But I think if you're talking about career in this decade, I would give it to AJ Styles, TNA World Champion, TNA World Television Champion. What else he do? He held the tag titles for a little bit with Kurt Angle. He had some big matches in TNA. There may have been a couple of lackluster feuds, but he still gave us the great matches. And it really wasn't until he went to New Japan where he really, really just took off with his career. And it was just a big time career revival. And I never thought I would see anything like it. And AJ was Wrestler of the Year for 2014, 2015, and 2016 so far for me. Although, you know, in my books, I would say he is definitely the best wrestler of the year so far. If he is able for me to deliver another great year next year, he may be on track to matching and, breaking Ric Flair's record for possibly best wrestler of the year. Although I don't remember if AJ won the wrestler of the year last year, but I would say career overall, AJ Styles, his working team good, although there were some lackluster bits. He had the great matches. He went to New Japan. He worked in Ring of Honor for an extended period of time. He worked New Japan. He held the IWGP Heavyweight Championship, I believe, twice. He had many great matches. He faced off for the IWGP Intercontinental title in what was bet for me with Nakamura at the Tokyo Dome. He won the WWE Championship at Backlash last month. So he's been really on a career revival in a career, in a career blast off. It's just been amazing how AJ's been able to pull this off. Daniel Bryan would come close and CM Punk would come close, but I would say AJ Styles for me has had the best career out of any of these three guys so far. What do you think makes Lucha Underground so different and more successful quality-wise compared to all other wrestling shows? They make it simple yet complex. It's simple in the sense that you're able to follow these feuds with ease. There isn't a lot of bullcrap in the way, and it isn't convoluted like it is with the storylines on Raw. Like with WWE, specifically Raw, they have such a tough time trying to book feuds to where it's like, yeah, these two are fighting each other. However, you don't have the motivation to really see them go at it. With Kevin Owens, Roman Reigns, you kind of understood it, but at the same time, it didn't make sense. It didn't make sense in the sense that the guy Roman should be going for should be Triple H, not Kevin Owens. And it's so convoluted on Raw with, people trying to chase after people. They're switching in and out of feuds. You have guys going over guys that shouldn't. There's just so much political backlash and bullcrap backstage with Vince, wanting to have certain guys go over, and then everybody's just getting butthurt about who's going over. But with Lucha Underground, I may have had a couple of issues with how they do it, but they're able to create a more, bringing some old school elements of wrestling, like the feuds of how one guy wants to go after another guy. You wanted to see him kick his ass. However, you have to wait a little longer, and it's like it's building, it's building, it's building. And then one of the things I think Patrick really did a great job at explaining with Lucha Underground. For those who don't know, he is the artist formerly known as NYG for Life 123. One of the great things he explained was that Lucha Underground easily is the best promotion that definitely understands how to do gimmick matches when it comes to the end of a feud in wrestling, and they do it perfectly because it isn't just some crazy indie spot fest. It is in a sense, but when you look at matches such as recently the Weapons of Mass Destruction match between Marty the Mothman Killshot and most notably, the No Mas I Quit match between Mariposa and Sexy Star earlier in the year. You saw the brawling, the violence, the intensity, but you also had that element of storytelling mixed in there along with the characters. Every one of those guys have great characters, really interesting backstories, and you're invested. That's the great thing in Lucha Underground. You're actually invested. You may have had a couple of, meh things in Lucha Underground, but the thing about it is they give you something interesting. They don't give you too much bullcrap. Um, the bullcrap is pretty much limited. Like Tejano Chavo Guerrero's feud, that was dull and boring, but at least they only had like 2 or 3 matches, and it wasn't like going to be dragging on for 7 months, continuously. But yeah, those two feuds and the matches themselves were awesome, and they proved why wrestling today has a lack of ending a feud with either a gimmick match or a proper finish to their feud, like Dusty Rhodes and Ric Flair. They built up their matches so much to the point when they finally had their steel cage match at Great American Bash '86, you finally got that satisfying conclusion. And what I love about Lucha Underground, their continuity is just genius. With the dog tags thing, Marty taking the dog tags from Killshot, you want Killshot kick his ass, but you also wanted to see him take his dog tags back. And the finish to their Weapons of Mass Destruction match was perfect. And the finish to the No Mas match was fantastic. Probably my favorite Lucha Underground match out there, next to Aztec Warfare 2 and the Cero Miedo match between Vampiro and Pentagon Jr. from Ultima Lucha. Some of those matches just prove gimmick matches have been a lost art when it comes to closing feuds. And recently, with the whole Sasha Banks Charlotte feud, we definitely could potentially see a Women's Hell in a Cell match that could end off their big time feud from NXT over to WWE main roster. So yeah, does that very well. The show is only an hour, so you can get a lot out of an hour, but you don't give out too much. It's kind of the same with NXT. But however, what I love about Lucha Underground is that they're actually different. It's not like they're the same corporate thing with WWE. It's not like you're getting a lot of political backlash and bullcrap behind certain things, and like nobody's getting butthurt about somebody going over. But when somebody does go over, it means it means a lot, and it's not like thrown to the sideline as well. So Lucha Underground, they have great attention to detail. They're interesting from character, storyline, feuds, presentation, and they actually have a live band playing for them, which I think is really cool. So it adds a little bit of not longevity, but just like something interesting to them. And although they're on a smaller network with El Rey Network, and I think they're showing on the Unimas channel, which was really the channel that I went to when I was trying to watch Lucha Underground. In the early parts, um, it definitely is much better, because if it was on a big time mainstream level, that presentation, that style would not work. So that's why TNA with the Broken Matt Hardy character has been getting a lot of praise recently, and I will get to a question about the Broken Matt character in a little bit. Question 3. Thoughts on the revitalization of Bobby Lashley in TNA? He's been pretty much doing really well for himself. I haven't seen a lot of his promos, but they were decent. But his in-ring work has improved. I mean, he had some really great matches. I think the only match I can remember watching from him was the Drew Galloway match from Slammiversary. That was an awesome match, my TNA match of the year so far. And reason why I'm saying that is because I have not seen Bound for Glory and I have not seen the Great War. So don't blame me on that. You can blame school sometimes because school is a bitch. But anyway, um, yeah, Bobby Lashley has just been a lot more credible in TNA. He was given time to improve. He went to MMA. He came to TNA a couple of times. And now that he's in TNA, he's just really been improving in different aspects. I haven't seen any, promos from what I remember. I've seen a couple of like small bits, but I haven't seen his full, charisma. But he's definitely coming off as the badass. He's known as the Destroyer. But yeah, that is some really good stuff he's doing in TNA. And I heard he had a solid EC3, which I was actually looking forward to at Bound for Glory, but hopefully it delivered something good at least. But yeah, there's that. Considering the partnership, do you think we will eventually see a New Japan wrestler as ROH champion, someone like Goto or Shibata? I'm sorry to say, but no, because there are a lot of complications when it comes to booking your champions. It may have been different with ROH because when it came to um God, what's his name? When it came to Takeshi Morishima when he won the ROH World Title, he was given a little bit of leeway when it came to when it came to working in and out of ROH because he was working ROH and then he went working with Pro Wrestling Noah. He had several title matches in Pro Wrestling Noah. One that I remember hearing about was him versus Kenta for the ROH World Title. So really, the one thing I have to say is the reason why I say no is because difficult for anybody to come to um, coming in and out between New Japan and ROH. And I feel like it's just gonna be more of a commitment type of thing. Plus, we already hear some not politics, but it's just like a lot of conflict when it comes to who's Will Ospreay versus Adam Cole from Destruction. I have not seen that match, but let's say never Ring of Honor sees that Cole is the better choice to go because A, he just won the title, and B, it would have killed his credibility as ROH completely right off the bat, and you don't want anything like that to happen. So that's kind of the thing. I feel like it's going to be more of a conflict between the promoters and the bookers, Jono and Gedo and Delirious. It's going to be really difficult for them to try to have one of their own guys go over to the other promotion to win the title. That's why you don't see guys like Adam Cole or the Young Bucks are kind of an exception, but certain guys not going over to another promotion for an extended period of time. If they were to do that, then it would have been interesting. But I feel like it's really difficult to explain. But it's kind of more of a commitment type of thing that I'm really worried about because there was already like a lot of cons to the television deal and other stuff like that when they started to go with television, the HD net stuff after fired, and then there was the conflicts with trying to get guys from Pro Wrestling Noah to come over to ROH. So it's just going to be kind of like a commitment type, and pretty much that's simple. You gave me a fifth question, however, I can't answer that because I have not seen this promotion. Your question was, what are your thoughts on WCPW, What Culture Pro Wrestling, and the wrestler it exposes to people like Martin Curtis of Connors? If you don't have an answer for number 5, here's another one. WCPW before, obviously, but I was thinking of watching it. My plan today was to try to watch Build to Destroy because I heard some good things about it, mainly the ROH World Title match between Jay Lethal and Noam Dar, but I never got the chance to watch it, so I might as well just answer your sixth question, which is technically number 5 that I'm going to be answering. So your question was, do you think SmackDown show like it did back in 2002 to 2003? It's going to become the A show standpoint, but when it comes to, presentation stand from it, when it comes to the big league standpoint, they're not. What I mean by that is WWE bashed many people's heads in the aggression era when they first did the original brand split that Raw was the A show, when in reality you saw from a quality standpoint it sucked. I mean, 2003 it had some of the worst material you could imagine, from Ruthless Aggression, Triple H's Reign of Terror, Scott Steiner coming in, but and all that, and you could kind of see it with WWE today, with Kevin Owens being a Plan B champion. You have many other guys, floundering in certain positions, most notably Sami Zayn. The booking there is a lot more convoluted, as I mentioned earlier, with the storylines and the feuds and who goes over and who's not going over. They try to act like it's complex storytelling, but when in reality it's convoluted storytelling. It's convoluted. You want certain things to interchange between certain things to me, but you're just wasting that material and you're just gonna go back to it later on and say, yes, this is gonna be fresh. No, I'm not a jackass. I can tell you're giving us the same shit. Like Roman Reigns and Kevin Owens, as I mentioned earlier. There are 2 matches from Raw from, I believe it was August and September. I think it was mainly September, but yeah. Um, it's just convoluted on Raw, but when it comes to SmackDown, though, They have a great variety of talent there. I'm not saying the talent there is elite when compared to Raw, because the talent on Raw is more of an elite roster. I mean, you have Enzo and Cass, with Enzo on the mic, Charlotte, Sasha Banks, Bailey, and Nia Jax. Three of the four horsewomen over there. You have Seth Rollins, Rusev, Roman Reigns. You have a lot of really good talent. But the problem is that from a storyline and booking standpoint, it's just convoluted, it's a mess, and it's really difficult to watch Raw. Plus, it's really 3 hours, so you can't really invest into anything. Plus, WWE likes to give you some pay-per-view level matches on television, and they expect you to watch those matches for pay-per-views. It's like, yeah, we gave you these matches on TV, now buy them on pay-per-view. I understand network is $9.99, although it's going to become $14.99. Now that it's been rumored that they're thinking of putting TNA and Ring of Honor footage and or actually ROH TNA sometime in the future, which I think that's awesome, but I don't want to be paying $15 for all of that, although it would be really cool to see. Um, Although I may be paying $9.99 for the network, although I don't have the network. This is just an impression of like a regular person who has the network. Yeah, I may have paid $9.99, which you've bashed over our heads for a full year. So fuck you for that. You may have bashed this over the head that this is $9.99. How do you expect us to still pay $9.99 per month when you're giving us the same shit over and over again? With SmackDown, they make it interesting. They try to change it up a little bit. The tag matches, yeah, you may complain about them here and there, but at least it accomplishes something on SmackDown. They accomplish, storylines. Although you expect a match to suck, you at least are invested in the story, which is really one of the great things of wrestling. The storytelling and the elements of great feuds and really interesting stories being told for the future. You have a nice variety of talent that's spread out on that roster. It may be a thin roster, but you got something to work with. Yeah, our SmackDown's not flawless because the Bray Wyatt Randy Orton feud is just terrible. Jesus, that feud sucks right now. I'm sorry to say, but you got a variety of characters. Look at the 6 women that were in that 6-pack challenge for the Women's Championship, the SmackDown Women's Championship, I should say, from Backlash. You have the crazy obsessed, Harley Quinn, um, elite champion, if you want to call it that, miniature version, Alexa Bliss. You have the Feel the Glow gal in Naomi. You have the veteran, if you want to call her that, in Nikki Bella. You had um, the tough Irish lass kicker in Becky Lynch, who was all straight fire and everything like that. And by the way, Becky, I love you. Anyway, you also had Carmella, who was like the bitchy type character who believes that she's able to take people out, she's able to get what she wants. Um, Carmella in a second. You had one other woman I forgot. Oh, and Natalia, who was bringing that old technical wrestling back in a way. But yeah, you have in that roster. You had different unique storylines. If they don't get the job done on getting you hyped for the pay-per-views on SmackDown itself, you can go to talking. Some may think it's a lazy approach, but it's genius because if they aren't able to succeed in building something on SmackDown, you can go to Talking Smack. It's a work shoot type of show for 25 minutes, which you could spare 25 minutes. For 25 minutes, you just get some really good work on the mic. You get to see like Baron Corbin and Alexa Bliss. I think my favorite, session on Talking Smack might have been the Alexa Bliss stuff because you got to see who she really was as winning championships from when she was young and so forth. So it was really interesting to see those type of people get the chance to really shine on Talking Smack. You get heated rivalries, you're getting AJ Ambrose building up for their matches, but mainly the promos between Cena and Ambrose have been outstanding. You got an absolute incredible promo between The Miz and Dolph Ziggler from the other week on SmackDown. That was freaking fantastic. And that got me invested into the championship match, which is coming up tomorrow night. Career versus title and win, but really they do a great job. And right now, to be honest, if you look at it from a quality standpoint, although, from what you want to call it, from the presentation standpoint and brand accessibility, it doesn't reflect. But yeah, thank you for those questions. Next set of questions come from Lundrick. First up, most underrated match each year from 2010 to 2016. I'm gonna go through this real quick because I'm already wasting enough time anyway. For 2010, as I mentioned earlier, Chris Jericho versus Evan Bourne from Fatal 4-Way. For 2011, surprisingly, I'm actually going to give it to Eddie Edwards versus Roderick Strong from Manhattan Mayhem 4 for the ROH World title. That show got a hell of a lot of praise. Some praise. However, I feel like years later, it doesn't get mentioned as much. Some people may love the Ringmasters Challenge match from Death Before Dishonor, but I feel like this match doesn't get enough credit for being an actually great match. I rated it 4.5 stars. It's a tremendous match. It's definitely one of the best matches of the year for me. I do think their Ringmasters Challenge was much better than this. Their rivalry and their chemistry does get heavily criticized, but I feel like that match at Manhattan Mayhem 4 was tremendous, and the finish was absolutely just the counter to that was just fantastic. For 2012, very difficult to choose. Damn, I have to go off the top of my head. How about Carl Anderson versus Kazuchika Okada from New Japan Pro Wrestling's King of Pro Wrestling? For those who have seen that show or have heard about that show, many people remember Minoru Suzuki versus Hiroshi Tanahashi for the IWGP title. They remember Kota Ibushi versus Loki for the IWGP Junior Heavyweight title, and some other stuff on there. But this is actually pretty damn underrated. I mean, their matches were great. I think I've seen only 3 of their matches, if not all of their matches. I saw their main event match for the IWGP title at Power Struggle 2013, which was great, which may have been the better match, but I prefer this one. The G1 Climax in 2014 was tremendous. So yeah, they've had some great matches over the years, and I feel like this was the best yet their most underrated match as a whole. So great little match right there from King of Pro Wrestling. I was thinking of the Kevin Steen El Generico Last Man Standing match from Showdown in the Sun. Get a lot of praise by some ROH fans, but this one I think is extremely underrated. I don't remember much of 2013 wrestling from what I've seen. But for 2013, oh god, I can hardly even remember. Oh god, oh god, oh god. I might have to skip this one, but you know what? Now that I think about it, how about Katsuyori Shibata versus Tomohiro Ishii from King of Pro Wrestling? That was an excellent match. Not as good as their G1 Climax match, mind you, which many people claimed as the match of the year, but this was an absolutely tremendous match. Yeah, one of the best matches on that show. I would say second best behind the match of the year, which is Tanahashi Okada in the main event for the IWGP Heavyweight title. Absolutely awesome match. Definitely check that one out. For 2014, 2014 most underrated match. Damn, it's really tough. I had one, but I've completely forgot it. How about how about Neville versus Tyson Kidd from the first Takeover? And I'm talking Takeover 1 from June. That was a great little match they had for the NXT Championship. Many people remember the Charlotte Natalya NXT Women's Championship match, which many people credit as the match that revived the women's division in WWE as a whole, not just NXT, but as a whole. But this one gets forgotten about, I think, because yes, it was remembered for being the main event, but I would say as a singles match, this is the best match of Tyson Kidd's career, and one of the many great matches Neville had in 2014 in that great NXT Championship reign, which came to an end in December at R Evolution. If you haven't seen this match, check it out. It's a great little gem of a match. But if I had to name 2 honorable mentions, off the top of my head, and I was originally picking this one when I originally recorded the Q&A, but how about this one? Davey Boy Smith Jr. versus Tomohiro Ishii from New Japan Pro Wrestling G1 Climax 24 Day 8. This was awesome. This was a great little opener they had. It went about 13 minutes, I think, maybe even less, somewhere around that time. This is, for me, the best match Harry Smith has ever had from what I've seen. I haven't seen that match with Nakamura from Invasion Attack 2013, but if you want to see some of the best work of Harry Smith's career, aka the son of Davey Boy Smith. This is definitely it. This is some of his best work ever, and it's just an awesome kick-ass opener. So that's just a quick honorable mention. For 2015, it's pretty easy for me, but 2015 most underrated match of the year, I'm actually going to give it to Neville versus Chris Jericho from Beast in the East. Many people remember that show for Kofi Kingston getting murdered. How the hell he's alive, I have no clue. People remember it for Finn Balor winning the NXT Championship from Kevin Owens in the semi-main event, although it should have been the main event, so whatever. But this one gets forgotten about. It's a great little opener these two guys had. And it went 16 minutes. You basically get Pac versus Lionheart in the opener of a event in Japan, nonetheless. I mean, Jesus, that crowd was hot for that match. Just an awesome match. Definitely one of Jericho's better matches over the last 2 years, I would say. Maybe one of his better matches of the decade so far. Maybe top 5. If I have to name one for 2016 most underrated, I'm gonna actually go with Cheetah versus Kenny Omega from Wrestle Kingdom. That match got a hell of a lot of the show got a hell of a lot of praise, although the undercard people thought it was forgettable. I thought it was a good undercard, but this one was the best match of that undercard by far. Just a great match, and I rewatched it the other day for my upcoming video, which I'm not going to mention what it is, but I rewatched it the other day, and I thought, yeah, it still holds up. It's a great match, and definitely one of, for me, breakout match in New Japan. Or mainly breakout performance, but wow, this was just a great match. Fast paced, great action, great junior action, and the finish made sense. A lot of people complained about the finish, but I had no problem with it. Just a great match. So yeah, definitely a match I definitely recommend you guys to check out. Kenny Omega, Kushida, Junior Heavyweight title, Wrestle Kingdom 10. Awesome match. Thank you for that question. Best Takeover special to date. Although Takeover Toronto was in another month, easily Takeover Dallas from WrestleMania weekend. On a 5-match card, 4 matches were great, and one of them is one of the 5 best matches of the year. I would say the second best of the year. You had Revival versus American Alpha for the tag titles, which was awesome. Just awesome old school NWA tag team matchup right there. Baron Corbin took the clean loss to Austin Aries in his NXT debut. It was decent, but it wasn't much. Shinsuke Nakamura versus Sami Zayn, arguably match of the year. Not even a question. One of the best matches of the year. 5 stars all the way. No need to explain it. Fight forever is all you really need to know. Bayley versus Asuka, a really good emotional little match for the women's championship, and I think it kind of gets forgotten by people. But Patrick from Patrick's Crazy Place really loves this match because of the story involved with it. But yeah, it's a great match as a whole. And despite the complaints I have with the blood stoppage and everything like that, well, not the stoppage, but the match getting halted for the excessive blood loss, Samoa Joe Finn Balor was a great main event. Although looking back, it was just not really tremendous, but just awesome main event. And the crowd that night was tremendous that night in Dallas. Plus, considering the fact that you also had several other shows, including on that same night, Supercard of Honor 10, which I think, although it doesn't touch Dallas, it comes close when it comes to overall top to bottom match quality and a variety of matches. But this one just had like more enjoyability out of it than any other show. So yeah, Takeover Dallas is definitely the best one. Number 2, I would give it to Takeover Brooklyn, the first one from last year. And number 3, I would give it to probably the Takeover the End, actually. That was a great show as a whole, top to bottom. No crap on that whatsoever. And I believe it was only a 5-match card anyway. So there was that one. Take a wrestler from the 1980s, 1990s, and 2000s and put them in this era. Who would it be and why? Take a wrestler from each decade. From the 1980s, I would probably say, oh, good God, it's tough. 1980s? If I can cheat with this, can I take Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard? They're just a great tag team. You didn't say I couldn't take tag teams, so I might as well. Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard, two of the one of the best tag teams from the 80s you'll ever see. If they would face Revival, holy crap. And if they would have faced some other teams like American Alpha, my God, they would have been some tremendous matches. I would definitely say Arn Anderson, Tully Blanchard from the 80s. Reason why I didn't go Ric Flair was because A, it's gonna be a cop out answer, and B, simply he would have been top notch over anybody. 1990s. Who would be a good fit from the 1990s to bring in? 1990s. God damn, it's hard. It's hard to think about, but um, I had to really give it a lot of thought, but it's really hard to really come up with it. I would say Bret Hart. You know, although he did slow down towards the end with 1999 and 2000, he did still put on some great matches. And I think him versus Daniel Bryan, him versus Punk, him versus a lot of great wrestlers on the roster. Hell, he would have given Dolph Ziggler his best match ever, possibly, and that would have been tremendous. And he would have fit in nicely with this diehard wrestling fans, and it would have been some kick-ass matches he would have put on. Plus, his promos would have been pretty good, and it would have been interesting, and it would have been simple. And his match, even if he faced John Cena, that would have probably drawn a lot of money, considering Cena the biggest draw the company has had since Hulk Hogan as a whole. And then from 2000s, 2000s, I want to. It's really difficult to say. Jesus. I'm not going to cheat and say Bryan Danielson or anything like that, but if I have to choose one, how about either Triple H from 2000 in today's wrestling, or if not, and if I can't cheat because of that, then maybe Kenta Kobashi. I mean, Kenta Kobashi, he was really in his prime. Holy shit. Kobashi really was in his prime in 2003, 2004, 2005. I haven't seen all of his GHC title matches, but I've heard a lot about them. The only two I remember watching from his title reign, first up, obviously, the one where he beat Misawa for it. And the match with Jun Akiyama from the Tokyo Dome in 2004, Pro Wrestling Noah's 4th anniversary show, Departure. And his match with Samoa Joe was incredible. Holy shit, one of the best crowds you'll ever hear and ever see. I think Kobashi would have been a big draw in NXT just for for people like seeing guys like Hideo Itami and Kota Ibushi coming in. You have a variety of wrestlers. I think Kobashi would have been maybe the biggest draw, when it comes to Japanese wrestlers. Next to Shinsuke Nakamura, actually, when you think about it, because Kobashi had that legitimacy to him as a badass, and he would have stiffed the shit out of people. I mean, and the next question you actually asked me is related to Shawn Michaels. Jesus Christ, you bring Kobashi from 2003 into 2010 when Shawn Michaels was just about to retire, he would have beat the ever-loving shit out of Shawn. My God, he would have made his chest bleed, honestly. It would have been that, but yeah, Kobashi would definitely be one from 2000s because just for the great matches and just for how big of a draw he would have been, as a whole. And if he came back to Ring of Honor, would have loved him probably, depending on their exposure to New Japan and other promotions, especially Pro Wrestling Noah, since they haven't worked with Pro Wrestling Noah fully for an extended period of time since 2009. But yeah, it would have been great to see. Say Shawn Michaels wrestled for another 2 to 3 years. Give me 5 feuds you put him in and put him in. Okay. Shawn Michaels. Let's see. 5 feuds. Kazuchika Okada would come off the top of my head. I think that would have been interesting to see. Because it's basically like Okada's like the Japanese version of Randy Orton, except a lot better as a whole. And it would have been interesting to see, although the promos would not have been, as great, depending on how it would have gone. But Shinsuke Nakamura, my God, he would have stiffed the shit out of Shawn Michaels, and Shawn would have retaliated at one point if they had wrestled. And the promos, Shawn would have brought out a lot of emotion. Nakamura would be like the badass, like the smooth guy, like I will break you down. And no, I'm not being that tone or that accent, but anyway, these two would have torn it up, and it would have been I'm not going to say as good as Undertaker Shawn Michaels, but that would have been interesting to see. Shawn versus Nakamura would have been interesting to see. Um, Obvious one, Dolph Ziggler. Dolph is wrestling now with the whole HBK inspired style, and that's three. Number four, I would say Daniel Bryan. That's an obvious one. Coming off the Hell in a Cell thing. If they had, since you said 2 to 3, and if they had like built off of that and did Shawn and Bryan at Survivor Series, if not WrestleMania 30, if I was to extend that, that would have been an amazing match. That would have been possibly the best match of Bryan's career. And then last but not least, Michaels and Punk. That would have been tremendous. Probably Punk's best ever match possibly would have been with Shawn Michaels. Although I would say his match with Samoa Joe in Chicago was definitely the best of his career. So yeah, that's five. Five feuds I would love to see Shawn face. Shinsuke Nakamura, Kazuchika Okada. I think Hiroshi Tanahashi would have been a nice pick as well, but I'm going to take him out of the equation for now. Dolph Ziggler, who would I say? Daniel Bryan and CM Punk, for many different reasons. Punk and Michaels would have had some great promos. Would have been to see. And last question. Name at least 5 American wrestlers you'd have loved to have seen work in New Japan but never did. One off the top of my head, and although he was in the decade for only 3 months as a full-time wrestler, Shawn Michaels. Like I said, would have faced guys like Okada or Nakamura, Tanahashi. It would have been interesting if he faced Omega, Naito, um, Shibata. That is a combination I think that would have been interesting. Ishii would have definitely been a really interesting opponent for Shawn because Ishii would have stepped the shit out of Shawn, and would have been cool to see Shawn in New Japan. Would have been interesting, and he would have been well respected. Shawn did work Japan, however, not New Japan. He worked that SW in Genichiro Tenryu's promotion in 1991, I believe, when they were doing that talent exchange thing in 1991 when Tenryu came in a couple of matches. So yeah, Shawn Michaels would have been one. Um, Roderick, I mean, I don't think if I want to count that match he had with Tomohiro Ishii earlier in the year because that was technically a Ring of Honor show that was done in Japan. But Roderick Strong would have been interesting to see. He would have been never openweight champion at one point, possibly if he had the charisma and if he had the ability to hang with them. I think he would have faced guys like Okada. He probably would have had a really really amazing match with Shinsuke Nakamura, maybe at the Tokyo Dome. If not, then um maybe at Invasion Attack, he would have faced some younger guys, some athletic guys, some of the juniors like Will Ospreay, Ricochet. Holy crap, Ospreay versus Michaels, that would have been tremendous actually now that I think about it. But yeah, um, Roderick Strong would have been interesting to see in New Japan. Chris Jericho, I don't think he ever worked New Japan before. Jericho, he's already been well respected in Japan. If you saw that match with Neville, that would have been interesting to see Jericho in New Japan facing guys like Tanahashi, Okada. Um, it would have been like, let's go, baby. Probably bring back like the whole rocker type of thing. Although not the straight man, sorry, the I can't remember what the name of the gimmick was, but his 2008 gimmick. If he had brought that to Japan, I wonder how the crowd would have reacted to it because Nick Bockwinkel kind of wrestled, well, not wrestled, but yeah, pretty much wrestled that style when he worked in, I believe, New Japan or All Japan on a few occasions. One of the most notable ones that I remember him wrestling, I believe he faced Vern Gagne in Japan, and I believe he faced Billy Robinson in a couple of matches. So would have been interesting to see a modern version of that Nick Bockwinkel character from Chris Jericho wrestling in Japan. If you're like, don't you dare tempt me, you peasant, or something like that. It would have been interesting. John Cena. I have no idea how popular Cena is in Japan, but that could have been interesting because I remember Sanders Robin 24 mentioned how it would have been interesting of a dream match to see Shinsuke Nakamura versus Cena at one point. Two of the biggest draws in their respective promotions. That would have been pretty kick-ass to see. Tanahashi and Tanahashi and Cena would have been great. So yeah, there's a fourth. And if I have to choose a fifth, God. Hmm. Uh, if I have to cheat, Chris Hero, can't think of one. I was thinking Zack Sabre Jr., although he's from the UK and he technically doesn't count, but because I would have said him and Shibata would have had some. Oh, they did have that great match in Revolution Pro for the British Heavyweight Championship. At I believe it was Summer Sizzler back in June, or no, July, sorry. But yeah, Sabre would have been interesting, but I can't count him. Um, TJ Perkins, I think, did work Japan, New Japan mainly. I think he did work New Japan because his style, along with his his high flying, his performances in the Cruiserweight Classic, he would have faced guys like if he was there, Kota Ibushi, he would have faced Will Ospreay. So I think I'm gonna change it to TJ Perkins if he counts because although he's from the Philippines, he's still working that would have been great to see TJ Perkins working with guys like Ricochet, who I did a great match with Ricochet at Evolve 59 back at WrestleMania weekend when I said in that preview video for WrestleMania weekend that yeah, I would have loved to see a match with the amount of time. So yeah, thank you for those questions, Lundrick. Next set of questions come from Diesel 101 Raw. First question. What if WWE did CM Punk versus Daniel Bryan for WrestleMania 30? Would have been a classic, plain and simple. Because if I feel like if they were to have done that match instead of the whole debacle with the Royal Rumble, and you would have had the Royal Rumble, CM Punk enter as the champion, or something like that, just to cap off what was already a great year in 2013 for CM Punk, that would have been great to, end that WrestleMania, that 2013 2014 season and start the 2015 2016 2014 2015 season off to a hot start. So yeah, that would have been an amazing match. It probably would have been 5 stars. Give them 25 minutes in the main event, like they should have freaking twice. Although Cena, they had to put him in the main event over Punk and Bryan, which wise doesn't translate to great business. I mean, WCW kind of proved that in the early 90s. But yeah, I think these two, if they had had the right storyline and so on, would have been fantastic to see them, main event 100% as a whole. No bull crap, no politics needed. How much bigger would WrestleMania 31 be if they did Brock versus Bryan and Undertaker versus Sting? Two separate matches, I think they would have been big in two separate demographics. It would have been bigger in the eyes of the diehard fans if they had done Brock versus Bryan because with Brock versus Bryan, people would see that as an epic classic. However, hopefully they take that match as a match if that had happened as one that would have been the ultimate underdog versus big badass monster, seriously, because you've seen with Brock's recent matches, he hasn't been putting the effort, and, they haven't been, showing as much motivation in order to do some of these matches. So, yeah, it just really sucks. But, with Bryan, I think it would have been interesting, and I don't think Brock has ever, commented on Bryan himself, whether he's a good or bad wrestler, but yeah, that would have been a really kick ass match to see. Sting and Undertaker, on the other hand, although it would have been 4 years too late, because if you remember, this was um, a little after, obviously a year after the streak was broken. But if the streak was broken, it would have been interesting to see these two go at it, one on one with the streak on the line, um, and Sting possibly breaking it. Although the streak probably didn't matter, but if the streak was already broken by Brock, like it did, and they did Taker and Sting on this show, it would have drawn big money because you already had Brock as WWE's biggest draw for when it comes to all of his appearances. But with Sting and Undertaker, it would have drawn mega buy rates possibly. Although, sorry, my voice is going there. Although the thing is, when it comes to pay-per-views, it's probably going to be um, noticeably lower since you got to remember this is the era of the WWE network, so people will be more on the network. So if you're convinced people to purchase the network for $9.99 for WrestleMania and say, hey, this is going to be a big match for WrestleMania, you got to get the network in order to see this pay-per-view and this match. God, why is my voice going out there? Excuse me. Jesus. But yeah, that would have been big time. It would have been, when it comes to this decade, maybe the biggest WrestleMania match of the decade. It probably would have been it. When it comes to Dice, it would have been the biggest match for them personally, like myself. But when it comes to the casuals, people like, hell, you even yourself, Diesel, or maybe Lundrick, or hell, even Jerichoholic 8704 himself. For you guys, casuals, this would have been your ultimate dream match that you wanted to see. And yeah, the match would not be great unless, surprisingly, they would. Sting and Triple H over delivered for me, although it was booked in a certain way. It would have been kick ass, and would it have made it bigger? Bigger in the sense for both matches, it would have drawn their respective crowds, but I don't think it would have drawn, as much money possibly, since the network was already in full force. Your thoughts on Sting turning down the deal for WrestleMania 27? Victory Road 2011, plain and simple. He fucked up, he did not take the deal, and it led to that horrible incident with Victory Road 2011 with Jeff Hardy getting high off his ass. So yeah, but if I have to give you detail and why I think what I think about that, it's sad because Sting was already in really good shape. Taker was still in, the best as good a shape as he was in the previous years, and he was able to deliver in big time matches. Although his only first and only match from 2011 was the match at WrestleMania in Atlanta. It sucks. If it would have happened and you had Sting and Taker in Atlanta, it would have sold. It probably would have drawn a bigger buy rate than what it already had with The Rock when he already returned. Although people would probably have complained about the fact that although the match had happened, what would it have accomplished for the future? That's what some people like to get out of WrestleMania. They have epic conclusions and something big happening at WrestleMania, but what did it ultimately lead to? This one, it probably would have led to both men retiring. I don't know. But yeah, it's sad that he turned down the deal. And when and for this next question, um, I referenced to it earlier about AJ Styles, but his question is, could AJ Styles be the wrestler of the decade? I think when you're looking at it from a consistency standpoint, his impact, when it came to his work on the Indies, his work in Japan, I'd say, yeah, AJ could potentially be it. He is possibly going to be ending up being the only wrestler to work full time from, at one point or another, TNA, New Japan, Ring of Honor, and WWE in the same decade. He is the only guy I can remember now that has accomplished the following. He's won the IWGP Heavyweight title twice. He's the only guy I can remember that won the IWGP title in his very, very first match in New Japan. Although, for some people, it doesn't count because AJ was already working New Japan. But when it comes to him as an individual, that was impossible becoming possible. He had a tear in New Japan. He had some really good matches in TNA. He was already TNA champion. He was television champion. He was tag champion. He recently won the WWE title. He's, I believe, one of, if not the only wrestler I can remember that won the IWGP Heavyweight Championship, the WWE World Heavyweight Championship, and the TNA World Championship. And he did it in the span, and he held all three titles in the span of 3 years. Plus, he's the only wrestler I can remember that Wrestle Kingdom and WrestleMania in the same calendar year. Holy shit. That's amazing to believe. AJ has accomplished so much, when it came to the latter years of his TNA career over to his work in Japan, his work on the Indies. The only title he never won from any other promotion that I've seen is the ROH World title, and in a way, rightfully so, because he didn't really need it because he was already proven himself as a legitimate champion. But yeah, AJ could potentially be wrestler of the decade when it's all said and done. Plus, we're already past halfway. We're only 6 years into the decade, so in the next 4 years, if AJ retires, I would say he potentially is wrestler of the decade because he could potentially be up there as one of the only people I would say that in 3 back-to-back years, he won Wrestler of the Year. Although in Observer Newsletter, he did not win Wrestler of the Year for 3 straight years. He only won it last year, which I feel like 2014 was criminal, although Nakamura did have a great year. But yeah, AJ, he accomplished a lot. His quality of matches said something. His quality of feuds, his promos, it's just been incredible to see from AJ, at this point in his career. But yeah, thank you for those questions. Or actually, I actually got one more for you, Diesel. Sorry. Um, who's better, CM Punk or Daniel Bryan? This is the difference. Who is better? For who do I prefer? I'm a bigger fan of Daniel Bryan than CM Punk. And no, it's not because I think Punk is a complete asshole and that I hate him or anything like that. No. I think when you're looking at it package-wise, CM Punk. Interesting look, interesting character, fantastic storyteller, um, amazing on the mic, great in the ring. He kind of reminds me of Raven, except a much cleaner, if you want to call him that, um, version. I don't know, but yeah, Punk, I would say he's better than Bryan because with Bryan, you always never really saw him on the mic. Um, although he did improve on his mic skills and he really showed he has the charisma to really work. But I think when you look at it from a excuse me, from a big time standpoint, Punk is really just better than Bryan as a whole. But yeah, thank you, Diesel, for those questions. Next set of questions come from Orzis147, and these ones I'll go through these quickly. And I know you probably wanted me to get through these questions, not fairly quickly, but go into detail. But really, these are some quick questions that I want to answer. As like a lightning round, if you want to call it that. So here we go. Number one, best wrestling promotion of the decade. I explained it earlier. New Japan Pro Wrestling. Number two, most overrated wrestler of the decade. Ryback, because he really didn't show me that much potential. At the time, I kind of did see some potential in him, but just the way that WWE booked him was bad, and he just never truly, recovered from all those consecutive pay-per-view losses until Money in the Bank 2013. None of the given, worked. He never really worked as a babyface, never really worked well as a heel. The squash match thing was pretty much the only highlight of him, and the last man standing match with Cena was great. But yeah, other than that, I can't really say much about Ryback. He really just didn't show much potential, in my opinion. Worst booking decisions of the decade, or decision, he only said, but worst booking decision, easily. Royal Rumble 2014 and Royal Rumble 2015, just because of how stupid they put those matches together. So that's all I really need to say, man. Next up, number 4, I believe. Yeah, number 4, best moment from any wrestling promotion this decade. For me, Daniel Bryan winning the championship at WrestleMania 30. Simply because it was just a feel-good moment, and it was a feel-good moment for everybody in general. For me, I was in a bad place in my life. I wasn't like doing drugs and shit like that. I was just like very pissed off all the time. I hated going to school, and I was just miserable. But I finally was able to turn it around somewhat later in the year and into 2015 as a whole. And although I may be struggling a little bit with school, I'm still kicking as much ass as I can in school because school's a bitch. But with this time in particular, I was so happy for Bryan winning the title. So that's my favorite moment and the best one so far. Best feud of the decade, Tanahashi Okada, because it made a completely new star from scratch. Almost completely from scratch because Okada was already working Japan, and New Japan in particular, for a little bit. But when he went to TNA and came back, it seemed like he was just fresh, and it was like, holy shit. How they booked him, how title in this first, in one of his first matches back, beating Tanahashi, and then going on a really good reign. Tanahashi winning the title back, which led to Wrestle Kingdom 7, which led to him finally getting the championship and going on the tear that he was going to eventually go on. An Invasion Attack of 2013 up until 2014 when he dropped it to AJ Styles. He had multiple match of the year contenders. They had, I believe, 4 or 5 5-star matches in my opinion. I'll probably do a feud flashback video on that rivalry. I just love that rivalry. Just amazing stuff, amazing wrestling. They make every match completely different than the last one, and it just ties it all up perfectly into a beautiful knot at Wrestle Kingdom 10. Absolutely incredible main event. my match of the year and my favorite match between the two as a whole. Although I answered those questions fairly quickly, thank you. Next set of questions come from, let's see, Emmy Grant. We got some good ones. Who would you consider the best wrestler of the decade? Best wrestler of the decade? I would probably give it to CM Punk, probably. But now that I think about it, I would give it to AJ Styles. Accomplishment wise, in ring wise, impact. You know, Punk is close, but I feel like because of how he went out and all the circumstances behind it, um, I feel like it kind of tarnishes his legacy in WWE and in wrestling. I can't really deny all the hard work he did and how he really opened the doors for WWE to do many different things when it came to changes, when it came to their hiring policies, if you want to say so. How, it opened the doors for, like, hey, all this bull crap and you're not willing to change, well, you know what? Screw you. I'm changing them. And he did so just brilliantly. But I think if you're looking at it from accomplishment ring, you know, so on and so forth, it probably has to go to AJ Styles. Just amazing stuff. Number two, which would be the most underrated match of this decade? It's very difficult to say, but I would say, again, I mentioned it twice earlier in the video, but I would say Chris Jericho versus Evan Bourne from Fatal 4-Way. That was a great match, and I think it's definitely one you guys need to check out. Which signing has been the most shocking? Signing that's been the most shocking? Probably AJ Styles, because I really wasn't expecting him to come to WWE. A lot of people were suspecting him to come to WWE somewhere around 2015, 2016. It really wasn't until the big rumors came out when WWE apparently seemed interested in Nakamura, Styles, Gallows, and Anderson, and they got all four in one fair swoop. And yeah, AJ was the most shocking of them all because I really wasn't expecting him to go since it looked like he was really happy working Japan, and going back and forth between New Japan, Ring of Honor. He worked PWG once, and a couple other different indie promotions. But yeah, I feel like AJ was the most shocking signing of the bunch. Which would be your favorite event of this decade? Favorite event. Now, favorite event is different from best, but if I have to say my favorite, I think my top two, well, maybe my top one would have to be New Japan Pro Wrestling Wrestle Kingdom 9. I already explained earlier how awesome of a show that was, top to bottom. But I feel like if I want to talk about enjoyability factor, I would say WrestleMania 30, just because it gave me three great matches. It gave me a shocking moment with the streak ending, an amazing opening segment with Rock, Hogan, and Austin. You had Cesaro being made that night, and you can get past all the politics and bullcrap behind it with the fact that WWE did not follow up on this pay-per-view. But yeah, just on the night and just the enjoyability factor behind it, I love that show. Personally, I would have given it a 9 out of 10, but I think as a whole, I would give it an 8.5 because I felt like there were a couple of things that were kind of, tarnished on that show, but it's still one of my personal favorite WrestleManias of all time. But I would say that and Wrestle Kingdom 9 are my two favorite shows of this decade. And last question he gave was favorite PWG match of this decade. Okay, you guys know I'm not the biggest fan of the Young Bucks. And there are some times where they piss me off to the point where I'm like, no, I'm not going to enjoy this Young Bucks match as much. And hell, I even know a fellow YouTuber who just completely hates them 100% with a passion. I don't think they're completely terrible, but they just are so annoying in so many ways. And it's not even good annoyance. Like, haha, I'm annoying you as a heel. No, you're annoying me because your thing is bullshit. But my favorite PWG match of this decade is the Young Bucks versus Candice LeRae and Joey Ryan Tag Team Championship Guerrilla Warfare from PWG 11. This was the 11th anniversary show. This got the main event slot, and I'm so happy it did because there was no other match that on that show, apparently, although I haven't seen that show myself, that could have topped it. I mean, it had so much amazing action. The intensity was there, the drama. Candice LeRae just put on a freaking phenomenal performance. People may say it was a little indie-rific when compared to the gritty realism that was Beulah McGillicuddy's performance in that match with Bill Alfonso at ECW's As Good as It Gets, that famous match. But yeah, this one was probably the best performances I've seen from a women's wrestler taking on male wrestlers. So yeah, that's my favorite match. It just has so much intensity, so much insanity in it. Oh my god, the blood And for those of you who don't know what's insane, Candice LeRae is actually the now wife of Johnny Gargano. That's and this was around the time they were starting to date. I don't know how long they were dating, but they were dating at the time, and then bada bing, bada boom, 2 years later, they're married. So that's amazing to see that Candice LeRae had the match of her career this night. I would say this is my favorite Young Bucks match ever. If you aren't convinced that the Young Bucks had their best match ever in this match, or at least had one of their best, then you definitely are missing out because this was an amazing match. Love this match. So check it out, and thank you for those questions. Last and certainly not least in this long as hell Q&A, I don't know how long this added up to because I decided to answer your questions in parts for everybody in this Q&A. Thank you for sending these questions. But the man himself, Jerkaholic8704, first question: would you have broken the Undertaker's streak? Personally, no, I would not have broken it because it was just sad to see. Um, Plus, it was just sad mainly because that performance was just so bad, and the match as a whole was just very, very lackluster. And how it ended like that. However, it made Brock look like a bit of a legitimate, more of a legitimate badass. Although you can attribute some of that to Undertaker just not being in the best condition of his career, maybe the worst condition I've seen ever in his career. My God, he looked like he got brutalized in a car accident or something like that. I don't know, but would I personally broken the streak? No. But was Brock the right person to break the streak? I would say yes in a sense because ever since then he hasn't looked back. It's kind of like with John Cena. Ever since he won the WWE title the first time, he never looked back. It was like, yeah, I'm the champion. Now I got to move forward. Although I may be facing some road bumps and some roadblocks, I'm not willing to stop to in order to make my career more legitimate than what it already is. So that's what pretty much Brock has been doing, with a badass, being as a badass in the WWE. So yeah, I would not have personally broken the Undertaker streak. Next question is broken Matt Hardy the best thing that happened to happen to Matt Hardy? Yes, because WAPW himself said it himself. He's pretty much been the most over character in all of mainstream wrestling as a whole. There's no other character in mainstream wrestling that is as over as Matt Hardy himself. My God, he's just been so good. He's just been entertaining. It's interesting. It's comical. It's comically bad in a sense when you look at it. But when you look at it from an enjoyment standpoint and how ingenious it is, it's just so interesting because, it's completely different from other promotions. And I know John Hennigan, aka John Morrison or Johnny Mundo, has complained about the Broken Matt character and how it's just complete ripoff of some of the stuff that Lucha Underground's doing. Well, you know what? It's basically the same with all wrestling. They always take ideas and they try to either parody it or try to find different unique ways in order to take that into consideration. Because with all different forms of entertainment, that's the thing. You want to take certain ideas, fine, but you got to try to find a way to add a new twist to it. It's kind of like with animes, you have these cliches, but if you're willing to execute them properly or in a very unique way, then you can succeed. And that's what pretty much Matt has been doing. He's been the most over guy in the company. You can argue even more over than EC3 because for the last 2 to 3 years, EC3 is considered the most over guy in the roster. But Matt Hardy's taken that throne, and he's probably been Wrestler of the Year, not from a quality of matches standpoint, but from character and what he's contributed to the business right now. Just amazing stuff. What did you think of the original concept of NXT when it first aired? At the time, I didn't really think of the concept as anything interesting or terrible. I was just like, this is cool. I want to see some good wrestlers. Let's see if these guys could potentially be brought up as the faces of the future. And the majority of these guys, either they're fired now, or they're off doing something else, or they're retired. The only guy that really got the true biggest success out of that first season of NXT was Daniel Bryan, and out of any NXT season as a whole from the first 2 to 3 years, Daniel Bryan was really the only guy that got the biggest success out of anybody on that crew of NXT guys, from season 1 to season 3 or whatever it was. But yeah, Very, very interesting. But for me now, looking back, with an older perspective, because I never saw as I do now, it was terrible. My God, just the whole challenges thing I thought was stupid, but maybe it was different. I don't remember really, to be honest, how the concept worked, but I knew it was like elimination, by fan vote. Although it was by vote of judges or something like that. But season two, it had elimination by fan vote. So yeah, I thought it worked later on in a certain way. But yeah, NXT, the original concept, it just didn't really work. And doing it in front of a big time WWE audience like they did, you know, taking the original, what's it called? Like taking a regular WWE television stage and, an arena and stuff like that and putting all those young guys in that position. No. If it was in front of Full Sail in a way and they had done the show that way, probably it would have worked, but it just never went over. And really, the highlight from that early NXT was Daniel Bryan's work shoot promo. That was an amazing promo, probably the best I've ever seen him cut. The one where he was cutting on Michael Cole in 2010. That was an awesome promo. But yeah, and that's my opinion on that. Two more questions to go. First up, which Wrestle Kingdom Nakamura match was better? Ibushi from Wrestle Kingdom 9 or Styles from Wrestle Kingdom 10? I'm in the minority. A lot of people would say the Ibushi match, but I would say the AJ Styles match was actually better. I mean, it had amazing storytelling, great psychology, tremendous psychology actually. The they sold it well. The selling was fantastic. The pacing was right. And it was just tremendous as a whole. I thought it was better than the Ibushi match. The Ibushi match had the intensity behind it and the storytelling, but I felt like the the overall aspect of the Styles match was just a little bit better. And that's just how close I thought, how amazing these matches were. So yeah, that is a freaking tremendous match. The AJ Styles match from Wrestle Kingdom 10. Although I do think the Sami Zayn match was better as a whole, as possibly the best match of Nakamura's career. And last question of this long ass commentary slash Q&A: what is your favorite Tanahashi Okada match from the 2010s? Easy, their match from Wrestle Kingdom 10. That is one of the greatest matches I think I may have ever seen. It's really one of those matches you look back and if I never see this again in another 5 to 10 years and I watch it, a match to watch where I'm like, I don't understand why I love pro wrestling anymore. I sit down, I watch this match, I'd be like, holy shit, this is why I love pro wrestling. It isn't about the high spin, about the incredible moves, which there were some amazing spots in this match, including the drop kick by Okada, but really, it was just a masterpiece. It's a work of art in wrestling. It's one of those matches where no matter how many times I see it, I just love it to death. It had so much going for it. It tied everything they had from their previous matches all together in this one match. The counters, the sequences in this match were tremendous. People may have complained about this match, about a couple aspects of this match, but I just think this is a much better match than any of their other matches before or after this. And when I mean by after this, I mean their recent G1 Climax encounter. And for me, it's the 2016 match of the year over Omega and Naito from the G1. It's the best match of their series, the best match of their careers, and for me, the best match of the decade, actually. Just absolutely incredible match. One of my favorite matches of all time as a whole when it's all said and done. Just, oh my god, I love this match to death so much, guys. And for that's pretty much it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this Q&A. And I don't know when I'm going to be announcing my next Q&A. Maybe I'll come up with a topic for tomorrow, and I'll upload the video tomorrow. I also have to finish my Flash reviews, 2008 and 2009. I'll probably start watching 2008 tomorrow, and then I can watch 2009 either Monday because I don't have classes on Monday, and I can finish up next weekend, and I think I'll be pretty much set. Also, this week at my school is homecoming week, I believe it is. So wish me luck, and hopefully I get a proper date. Although I've really never given a shit about dances at my school. Yeah, that's the best way to find a way to get to romance a girl. But anyway, although I'm not that type. But anyway, hope you guys enjoy this Q&A, and until the next video, peace.